I'm going green.
2, straight up.
I'm going 2. I'm going 2 straight up.
Hold my hand. It can't go red 4 times in a row.
I'm going 2. I'm going green. Oh my god.
It cannot go red 5 times in a row.
Oh my god.
It cannot go red 6 times in a row. It's mathematically improbable.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
It can't go red 5 times in a row.
Gambling doesn't look the way it used to. Traditionally, when you gamble, you bet money to play a game with the potential to win more money. But in today's world, gambling has evolved. It's infected many parts of our daily lives, and it's become a major component of video games. Just about every game nowadays has some form of loot box system. One day some businessman had the bright idea, why give our players the skin they want when we can have them spend 10 times the price by making them roll for it? In most cases, it's just cosmetics locked behind these slot machine paywalls. Nothing that actually affects the game itself. Just something to make your character look cooler or give you digital bragging rights. But not in card games. Games such as Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, Magic the Gathering Arena, and more are sold as free to play, but what they really are is free to start. It's like a demo. You get to preview how fun the game is, but if you really want to experience the whole thing, you're gonna have to pay. So that got me wondering, what happens if you don't pay? Can a new player, someone just downloading the game, actually compete with the best of the best? Can you build the strongest deck, win consistently, and climb the ranks, all without spending a single cent? To find out, I ran an experiment. I created brand new accounts in 3 of the biggest free-to-play card games with the simple goal of building the current strongest meta deck in each game without paying any money, to see if it's actually possible to compete as a free-to-play player. Sounds fair, right? All I want is one deck. Surely that isn't asking for too much. Right? Of course, each game is very different. They each have their own in-game currencies, reward systems, crafting mechanics, and monetization traps that are definitely not designed to frustrate you into spending more money. I'm looking at you, Yu-Gi-Oh! Before we dive into each game, we need to talk about why this model is so frustrating in the first place. Let's say you're a brand new player. You start grinding your way through the game, doing your daily quests and completing all the tutorials. Eventually you scrape together enough resources to build a real deck. Not just some half-baked starter deck, but something that can actually win. Great, you've got your one deck. Now, you better really like that deck, because it will take all of your resources. So unless you're planning to grind for dozens more hours or spend some money, that's your only option. And if the devs decide to nerf it next patch, well, I hope you like being hard stuck gold. The sad truth is that if you want to compete, you need the good cards. And if you don't have them, or you try to build some budget-friendly variation of a meta deck, you're basically showing up with a knife to a gunfight. And then there's power creep. The longer you play, the more cards get added, which means that even if you were caught up, you'll always be one expansion behind unless you cough up the cash to get the latest, strongest cards. Technically, these games aren't pay to win. You can technically earn everything through gameplay, in theory. But the grind is so slow, so tedious, and so limiting that most players either give up, settle for a worse deck, or start opening their wallets. All this grinding and money spending forces you to calculate your fun. How much is your time worth? If it takes 30 hours of grinding to build one top-tier deck, is that a fair trade? What if you just want to hit the top rank? How much would you pay to skip the grind and get there faster? $100? $200? $300? The cruel irony of it all is that variety is what makes card games fun. Being able to experiment with new strategies, try different archetypes, and use all the cool cards you've collected. But variety is expensive. So with all that in mind, I tested these 3 games to see how each one handles free-to-play progression. My goal is simple: build a current #1 meta deck in each game's standard format. I want to know how long it takes to build a deck, how many games I had to grind, how generous or stingy the new player rewards are, and most importantly, will I have any fun along the way? I'll also be calculating the maximum price of the decks I want to make, just to see how much you could potentially have to spend in order to make the strongest deck. And if your luck is anything like mine, be prepared to have to spend even more. We'll start with the game that I have the most experience with and have spent way too much money on, Hearthstone. When I went to create a new Blizzard account, I had to come up with a username. I decided to take the randomly generated username tool for a spin, and I landed on Neon Rhino. So the adventures of Neon Rhino began. Hearthstone has seen many changes to its new player progression system over the years, and the current iteration appears quite generous. You play through some uneventful bot matches.
Yeah, boy.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Gaining rewards of card packs for winning games and completing challenges. There's this new player battle pass that you progress through by leveling up, and one of the rewards you get are these special packs called catch-up packs. When I first saw this, I thought my whole challenge was about to be nipped in the bud. A single pack worth 10 packs that you get for free? Surely this builds your collection up in no time. I should have known my challenge was in no danger. This is Blizzard we're dealing with. You think they're going to give you the good stuff for free? Yes, these packs do fill out your collection, but really they just give you most of the commons. Hearthstone's pack opening odds are on par with the rest of the industry, which is another way of saying they're not great. Legendary cards have a 5% drop rate, with a guaranteed pull within your first 10 packs of a new set. And then you're only guaranteed one legendary for every 40 packs after that. You're guaranteed these legendary pulls every so often because of a system called a pity timer. Basically, the game feels so bad for you that you haven't hit a legendary in the past 40 packs that it'll throw you a bone and give you one. How much does 40 packs cost, you might ask? 4,000 gold, or $50. Damn, you spent 50 bucks and didn't get a single legendary? Don't worry, I got you. Here's the worst legendary in the entire set. If you don't like it, don't worry. You can disenchant it for a whopping 400 dust. So just pull 3 more legendaries and then you can craft the one you want.
Mighty Millhouse Metastorm!
But are we able to make that meta deck is the real question. And surprisingly, the answer is yes. Now, I'm not nearly lucky enough to pull all the cards that I needed, but the catch-up packs helped me with most of the commons and rares, and I had enough cards to disenchant in order to craft the remaining cards that I needed. At the time of recording, the best deck in the game was Zerimi Priest, with a 60% win rate. Luckily for Hearthstone, the highest win rate decks are usually aggro decks that play a lot of cheap, strong minions and end the game before their opponent can get a chance to play the game. Aggro decks typically are inexpensive to craft, as a bulk of the cards are small minions that you want to run multiple copies of, so there isn't often a need for a lot of legendaries, which are the most expensive to craft. I was amazed at how easy it was to make this deck, so I wanted to see if it was possible to make another one. The second strongest deck at the time was Zerg Hunter. Same concept as the Priest deck, cheap aggro with only 4 epics and 2 legendaries. A crazy cheap deck. Still, I was 3,215 dust short of making it, so I started disenchanting. And just barely, with not a single card left in my collection outside of the ones in these 2 decks and the uncraftable ones, the deck was complete. Congratulations, you are now the proud owner of 2 aggro decks. And all it cost you was everything. This is the problem I'm talking about. Being stuck with just an aggro deck or 2 is so unfun. The decks I like to play are usually chock full of legendaries and are way too expensive to craft with just the new player rewards. The cost of making the decks I actually want to play is either forcing myself to play this deck I don't even like for hundreds of hours, or paying an unreasonable amount of money. Let's do some math and see how much time or money it would actually cost you to make a deck like Zerimi Priest from scratch. The easiest way to calculate the cost is through crafting. This deck features 5 legendaries, 5 epics, 9 rares, and 11 commons. That's a total of 11,340 dust. Each pack you open contains 5 cards, where you are guaranteed at least 1 rare. You have a 21% chance at pulling an epic and a 5% chance at pulling a legendary. Luckily, the pity timers will get you a minimum of 1 epic per 10 packs and 1 legendary per 40 packs. A card pack costs 100 gold. For simplicity's sake, we'll say that 100 gold is equal to $1 or 1 day of gameplay. Obviously these numbers aren't exact, but it's just to make these calculations easier. In the worst case scenario, the dust value for your first 9 packs is 40 dust each, with each pack containing 4 commons and 1 rare. Then on your 10th pack you get 3 commons, 1 rare, and 1 epic, totaling to 135 dust. This cycle continues until you hit your 40th pack, which contains 2 commons, 1 rare, 1 epic, and 1 legendary, totaling to 530 dust. At this rate, you are earning 2,375 dust per 40 packs, and it would take 199 packs to get 11,345 dust, which is enough to craft the deck. At $1 per pack, that's $199 for this one cheap deck, or 199 days of average gameplay. That's more than 6 months. Again, this isn't to say this is what it would actually cost. This is an extreme case that doesn't account for a lot of factors. It's just to put into perspective the kind of investment these games require. All in all, Hearthstone does pass. While you are heavily limited by remaining a free-to-play player, you can still make the most meta deck for free, and even still have some resources left over. At the end of the day, playing Hearthstone again was actually pretty fun, and it nearly roped me back in. Especially with all the cool new cards and StarCraft stuff. Playing Odd Warrior again was a treat, but I feel like I'm only able to enjoy the game because I have spent hundreds of dollars on my main account. If I wasn't so busy with so many other things, I might consider coming back. I know that if I did, I would want to build a whole bunch of new decks and probably spend way more money than I should, so it's probably for the best that I don't go back. See, I'm out here talking about Hearthstone like it's a toxic ex-girlfriend. I don't have nearly as many hours in Master Duel that I do in Hearthstone, but me and Yu-Gi-Oh! Go way back. I used to collect the cards as a kid, not because I knew how the game played, but because I thought the monsters looked cool. A few years back, I got addicted to Duel Links. I was finally old enough to understand the game, and I loved it. For those of you that don't know, Duel Links is a mobile version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That gives you bite-sized games with half the life points and half the board space. I probably spent over $500 of my time on Duel Links before getting bored of it and moving on. Last year, I got really into Master Duel, and it was like deja vu. I fell for all the same traps again. I tried being as financially responsible with my gems as possible, but my desire for variety was just too powerful for me to overcome. There were so many cool decks I wanted to try and not nearly enough gems to fund them, so I once again opened my wallet. Going into this challenge, I had very low expectations for Master Duel. There are so many cards in this game, and it's hard to pull the exact ones you need for a deck. The game does feature a crafting system similar to Hearthstone, which helps you, but when you need to dismantle 3 ultra rares just to make 1, you still have to get insanely lucky with your pulls. There were a painful amount of tutorials to have to get through, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a complicated game with a lot of mechanics, so it makes sense. Plus, the gem payout for completing the tutorials was pretty high, so I took the time to do all of them. Anything I could do to get my hands on some gems, I was gonna do it. One thing Master Duel does right with its monetization is offer these bundles that guarantee you some of the most important ultra rares that are featured in almost every top deck. However, even with buying multiple of these bundles to try and help me build my desired deck, I didn't even come close. The deck I was aiming for was Fiendsmith Control. Even with all the gems I got for doing all of the tutorials and completing missions, and getting multiple required ultra rares from the bundles, I was still short 1 neutral, 2 rares, 11 super rares, and 33 ultra rares. Even if I dismantled all 16 ultra rares that I did pull from all my pack openings, it would only surmount to 175 UR crafting material. That would only make 5 ultra rares, still leaving me 28 short. There were more gems I could get if I continued to grind through all the missions, and it would add up to quite a bit, but with the odds of pulling the specific ultra rare you want being as low as 0.002%, and the odds of pulling any ultra rares only being 2.5%, with a conversion rate of 3 to 1, the odds of you being able to actually make a deck like this are insanely slim, and that's for one deck. For the worst case scenario calculations, the desired deck consists of 41 ultra rares, 11 super rares, 4 rares, and 1 neutral. In order to craft every necessary card, we would need 3 of each card rarity, meaning 123 ultra rares. For the other rarities, it's safe to assume with all the packs being opened that inevitably you will get enough of each crafting material to make the remainder of the deck, so let's just focus on those ultra rares. The pity system in Master Duel gives you 1 ultra rare guaranteed in your next 10 pack bundle if you open a 10 pack bundle with no ultra rares. Therefore, with a 10 pack bundle costing 1,000 gems, the worst case scenario is 1 ultra rare for every 2,000 gems spent. So to get our 123 needed ultra rares, we would spend 246,000 gems. The most gems you can buy at one time is 4,950 for $70.99. We would need 50 of these to get our required number of gems, which comes out to a total of $3,550. You could buy a used car for that much money. Unfortunately, it doesn't get much better if you want to just play the game to get that many gems. According to this Reddit post, if you play every day, complete your daily quests, claim your login rewards, and climb the ranks every month, you can get around 5,560 gems per month. To reach our goal of 246,000 gems, you would have to play for over 44 months to achieve this. That's 3.5 years. I hate to break it to you, but that deck you've been grinding for the past 3.5 years isn't even remotely relevant anymore. Again, I have to say these numbers are not realistic. Nobody could possibly be that unlucky. These calculations are for fun, not to be as scientifically accurate as possible. Master Duel gets a big ol' fail. It is all but impossible to play this game without spending money on it. Plus, you'll have to spend quite a bit to build a specific deck. If you're flexible and play with the cards you pull naturally, avoiding crafting will save you a lot. But then you're forced into playing decks you might not want to play. I know there are budget decks you can make, but that's not what I'm after. I'm simulating a new player that wants to come in and play the best deck in the format. And I think that's a reasonable ask. But even if it isn't the number 1 deck, just about every deck in this game is either going to cost you some serious cash or some serious dedication. I had 0 experience with Magic the Gathering going into Arena, so I really had to pay attention to the tutorials and actually learn the game. After completing the basic tutorial, I moved on to the color challenges, which are a set of challenges to show you how each color of deck likes to play, as well as introducing some common mechanics. These gave decent rewards, nothing special, but they were worth doing. After that, I opened all of the packs the game gave me for free. It seems like every new set that releases, the players are given a couple packs for free. I had quite a few packs to open, and being unfamiliar with the game, I had no clue if my packs were good or not. There were some cards with some sick art though. Here I was introduced to Arena's crafting system. As you open packs, you have the chance to pull these wild cards to craft any card of that given rarity. You can also earn higher rarity wild cards from pulling multiple wild cards of a lower rarity. This seems like an insanely generous crafting system. Yeah, you have to pull a mythic wild card to craft a mythic, but it's better than having to pull 3 or 4 legendaries just to disenchant them to create the one you want like in other games. Speaking of disenchanting, it doesn't exist in this game. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because you don't have to sacrifice your collection to make the cards you want. It's bad because you don't even have that as an option. There are cards that you may never use that will just sit in your collection forever, which would be better used if you could exchange them for crafting material. The other big downside is that the most common way to get wild cards is through opening packs. Even if you grind a lot, you aren't opening packs all that often. You do get free packs from the Battle Pass though, and when you are able to open packs, they seem to have good odds. However, even with all the free packs and all the packs I was able to buy with my gold, I still came just shy of making my deck. The deck I was aiming for was a mono-red aggro deck, which had a 59% win rate. Similar to Hearthstone, this deck is centered around cheap aggro cards that will overwhelm your opponent before they have the time or mana to respond. I ended up being just 2 rares short of making the deck with all my initial rewards. I still wanted to see the deck in action, so I subbed out 2 random rares with cards I did own. I can see why this deck has such a high win rate. With the right hand, you can create so much pressure in like 2 turns. As far as making other decks in the future, it seems a little tricky. If you're flexible, your collection will remain forever, so your pool of cards to choose from can only grow. Let's do some math and figure out the details. When trying to figure out the calculations for the worst case scenario, I found it to be a lot harder to figure out than with the other games. To keep with consistency, I wanted to create the deck using exclusively wild cards. With the drop rates being this generous, it's safe to assume all of our common, uncommon, and even mythic needs will be met in our pursuit of rares. If we have to open the maximum number of packs, which in this case is 30 per rare, for the 12 rares this deck requires, that comes out to 360 packs. 200 gems, which would get you 1 pack, costs roughly $1.50, making our total cost come out to $540. If you want to buy your packs with gold instead, at 1,000 gold per pack and a daily average of 625 gold, you would need 360,000 gold, which would take you 576 days. Now that sounds like a lot, and it is, don't get me wrong, but the reason I said it was tricky for this game is because wildcards are obtainable through ways other than just being pulled from a pack. You passively earn wildcards of higher rarity by collecting wildcards of lower rarity. You can also earn wildcards from doing quests. Duplicates are converted to wildcards, and you can also just buy wildcards directly. This whole system really threw a wrench in my calculations, but good for Magic. While the worst case scenario may technically be worse than Hearthstone, I think it may actually be easier to make a deck in this game. I'm going to give Magic a pass. While I did fail to create my deck, I did come very close, so I could see someone being luckier than I was and being able to craft it off rip, or just grind for a little bit longer and make it. Magic was surprisingly a lot of fun. I would be tempted to play the game more, but I look at the daunting grind ahead if I want to avoid spending money, and I just cannot commit to that kind of undertaking. Or I should say, I don't want to. Here's one final look at all of the numbers. And again, there are a lot of factors not being accounted for in these calculations, so don't just take them at face value. Still, even as rough estimates, they paint a pretty clear picture that these games are expensive. Whether it's money, time, or both, the cost of staying competitive is steep. I can't say I'm really surprised by these results. If anything, I'm surprised at how cheap Hearthstone is compared to the others. And I use the word cheap very loosely. Every new expansion that came out, I would buy the $100 pre-purchase bundle, and I still felt like there were so many decks I wasn't able to create. For those of you out there that keep up with any of these 3 games, I commend your dedication. The meta changes so frequently. I recorded the footage for this video about a month before editing, and just in that time, each of these decks that I made, which were the highest win rate just a few weeks ago, are not even listed in the top deck section anymore. Whether you get all the newest, strongest cards from grinding or spending money, or if you just find ways to make older cards work, it is truly impressive if you're able to keep up. And maybe that's the real catch. It's not just about making a good deck once. It's about constantly rebuilding, relearning, and reinvesting. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Things would get stale real quick if things weren't constantly shifting. Keeping up with the ever-changing metagame is part of the fun. While I think these games might be more trouble than they're worth, I still love them. They're incredibly fun, and I may just be a gambling addict, but the feeling of opening packs is always such a thrill. I don't think these games are evil, but I do think they're trying to take advantage of players that just want to play the game. And that's what bothers me. You shouldn't have to pick between having fun and keeping your wallet intact. So if you're thinking about playing one of these games, or if you play them every day, don't forget to ask yourself, how much are you really willing to pay for a few digital cards? Because no matter how they spin it, these aren't free-to-play games. They're pay to compete, pay to keep up, and pay to have fun. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments how you feel about the monetization of these games, and outside of that, what are your thoughts on gambling and video games as a whole? I think this is a really interesting topic, and I only really scratched the surface in this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.